Hi YouTube, this is Toka. Today I want to talk a little bit about Dr. Ratio, as recently we have gotten some information regarding his signature light cone. So I wanted to take a second to address some the information regarding this light cone, as well as maybe some possible alternatives that you could choose if you decide not to roll for his light cone. Because as recently during the 1.6 live stream, we were given information that Dr. Ratio is going to be given out to us completely for free to anyone that has access to the mail features. So those of you that had been saving your Jades to pull on his banner, this might be a good alternative solution for you to spend your Jades to just hook them up with the signature light cone, especially for some of you that don't typically pull on the light cone banner due to the limited number of pulls you get from being free to play. Now, I do want to preface this video a little bit, as I do not claim to be a theory crafter or anyone that takes math into account when it comes to my choices on these light cones. These are purely just my opinions on, I want to say, more of a field craft on how I think the unit will function with this light cone, and it is not what it might be actually mathematically the best, but it's what I feel like is the best in my own personal opinion. Now, with that out of the way, just going to go ahead and go right into this. So as you can see, we have Dr. Ratio's signature light cone, Baptism of Pure Thought. The stats that it has at level 80 are going to be HP 952, Attack 582, and Defense 529. Now, this is very standard when it comes to your signature light cones, with the exception of just the HP and the defense. HP is slightly a little bit lower than your average, and your defense is going to be a little bit higher than you're used to seeing, which makes Dr. Ratio going to be a little bit more of a tankier hunt path character than you would see from maybe Zila or Topaz. So it's going to affect his survivability just a little bit, but you probably might not see a huge difference. Now, regarding the light cone's effects, I'm going to go ahead and read this off and then kind of give my opinions on it just right after. So the light cone itself increases the wearer's crit damage by 20%. For every debuff on the enemy target, the wearer's crit damage dealt against this target increases by another 8%, stacking up to 3 times. When using their ultimate to attack the enemy target, the wearer receives the Disputation effect, which increases damage dealt by 36% and enables their follow-up attacks to ignore 24% of the target's defense, and this lasts for 2 turns. Now, this is going to be a very excellent light cone, especially for Dr. Ratio. It would be kind of weird if his light cone wasn't going to be good for him, but for any general hunt unit, it is going to be really good. You get the 20% crit damage, no conditionals, and as well as depending on your composition, you get additional crit damage on top of that for every debuff, up to 24%, totaling to 44% crit damage that you can receive from this light cone. Now, the second part of the text is where it gets a little bit more niche for Dr. Ratio, but some other hunt characters can make use of some of this effect. As you can see, it says when using their ultimate to attack the enemy target. So right there out of the gate already excludes Topaz from this effect, because Topaz's ultimate does not do any sort of attack. It's just a buff for Numby. But other characters like Sushang, Zila, going to be able to make use of part of this effect, because once they activate their ultimate to deal damage, they are able to increase their damage by 36% up to 2 turns. Now, the only other character I can think of that is going to be able to make use of the secondary effect is going to be Yanqing, with the follow-up attacks being able to ignore 24% of the target's defense. So this is going to be a very good alternative light cone as well for Yanqing, because of the crit damage, the damage dealt, and the defense ignore for his own follow-up attacks for 2 turns. But this is still going to be a very good light cone for the majority of your hunt path users if you're looking for a new 5-star light cone that you can use on not just Dr. Ratio, but for a few of your other on roster. Now, going to go ahead and delve a little bit more into some of the other free-to-play options or alternative options that might not be free-to-play for people that decide to skip this light cone. So I'm going to go ahead and leave Dr. Ratio's light cone information on screen just so we can get the side-by-side comparison from his text and the other text, so you don't have to keep referencing it back and forth in the video. So as you can see here, these are our current Lycone options. Some of it's going to be covered up by Dr. Ratio Lycone, but I'm just going to kind of touch up on a few of these that I feel like are going to be good alternative options. The first one being Worrisome Blissful, which is Topaz's signature Lycone. As another Hunt Path user that has follow-up attacks built into their kit, this can be a very good option. At S1 increases the wearer's crit rate by 18%, as well as their follow-up attack damage by 30%. And this is very good considering that Dr. Ratio's bulk of damage is going to be through his follow-up attacks. On top of that, this Lycone also afflicts a debuff once a follow-up attack is made, which is going to be very good for reducing that debuff counter necessary in Ratio's kit by 1 to guarantee those follow-up attacks. Then continuing on, another one I want to kind of touch upon is Cruising in the Stellar Sea. This is one of our free-to-play options from the Herta store. Pretty easy to achieve at S5. I say easy, but it's like 16 weeks of grinding. But nevertheless, it is still achievable. The S5 increases the wearer's crit rate by 16% and increases it by another 16% as long as the target is equal to or lower than 50% HP, totaling to the 32% crit rate. That's going to be a pretty decent option for guaranteeing those crits on those follow-up attacks. And then on top of that, if an enemy is defeated, you get an additional 40% attack lasting up to 2 turns. Some of our other options are going to include Swordplay, which has always been a very good 4-star Lycone that has been a staple as a free-to-play option. But at S5, this Lycone gives you 5 stacks of damage, increase of 16% when the target is hit. These stacks do reset if targets are switched, so you do have to continuously hit the same target. This is kind of a good, and there are some downsides to this Lycone for Dr. Ratio in my opinion, as the wearer does have to be hit to get these damage stacks, and Dr. Ratio is going to be a little bit slower to achieve the full 5 stacks for the 80%. As we saw in his video, when he does a skill, it's going to be able to trigger a follow-up attack that is 2 hits, so that's going to be 32% damage. So unless he is inside of his ultimate, where he can trigger additional follow-up attacks outside of his own turn, you're going to have to wait till his next turn to get more additional stacks on top of those 2. So it's going to be a little bit slow on the ramp up to get the full benefit of this Lycone, but 32% damage increase is still going to be very strong. Now, a couple of the other options I wanted to go over. One is going to be Sleep Like the Dead, which is Yanqing's standard Lycone. It's going to be a really solid option as it gives you 30% crit damage at S1, and when, say, Dr. Ratio does a basic attack or skill, and it does not result in a crit, it will increase his crit rate by 36%, which is going to make it a little bit more consistent for his follow-up attacks, which is going to be the bulk of his damage, to nail those crit hits. And then the last Lycone I want to touch on is going to be Only Silence Remains. I feel like this is going to be a Lycone that's kind of slept on by a majority of people, but if you have no other options whatsoever, this is going to be your decent fallback backup of backup plans kind of option, because at S5 this is going to give you 32% attack, unconditional damage increase, as well as if there are 2 or fewer targets on the field, you're going to get that 24% crit rate, which is going to be kind of the bulk of when you're going to be using hunt units. Is going to be those chunky elite units that are 2 or less, and you can drill them down really fast. Now that we've come to the end of the video, I just want to say to anyone that has watched the whole thing, thank you. This has been my first video covering any characters and their Lycones. I don't know if you saw my previous video. It was the one with Blade soloing Conundrum 12 and Gears of Gold. It was my first ever Honkai Star Rail video. I'm kind of a relatively new content creator in this space. I've been live streaming for a bit, but it's been kind of very off and on, but I hope to kind of get more into full time on this. With that being said, if you do enjoy the content, I would appreciate if you would leave a subscribe, a like on the video, that kind of stuff really helps with the algorithm, as well as if you really enjoy my content, I would appreciate any follows on my other social media, uh, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Twitch. Whenever I get back into streaming full time, my schedule's a little bit busy, but I hope that I can start streaming Honkai Star Rail and other games that I enjoy in the near future. I will leave those links in the description below. But aside from that, I hope you all have a good day and see you in the next video. Bye.